It started quietly, in a small town where the days were slow, and everyone knew their neighbors. But beneath the surface, something dark was brewing. There was a house no one liked to visit, a man no one really understood. The secrets inside his home would shock the world, turning the quiet town into a place of nightmares. What had been hidden for years would finally be uncovered, and the truth was more horrifying than anyone could have imagined. Welcome to our channel. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon for more chilling stories. Edward Theodore Gein was born on August 27, 1906, in La Crosse, Wisconsin. He grew up under the watchful eye of his mother, Augusta. She was strict, religious, and overbearing. She shaped Ed's mind from a young age. His father, George, was an alcoholic, often absent and uninvolved, leaving Augusta in full control of Ed and his older brother, Henry. The family moved to a secluded farm in Plainfield, Wisconsin, when Ed was around 8 years old, and it became their isolated world. Ed's childhood was lonely as Augusta stopped her sons from interacting with the outside world. She also taught them that all women, except her, were evil. Ed was entirely devoted to his mother. He grew up believing in her twisted ideals. He attended school, but was often bullied for his shy and strange behavior. He also struggled academically and socially. These things retreated him further into the farm life and his mother's influence. In 1940, George Gein passed away, leaving Ed, Henry, and Augusta alone. Henry started getting tired of their mother's control. He began to question her views, which led to arguments between him and Augusta. Ed, however, remained loyal to his mother. In 1944, during a fire on the family farm, Henry died under suspicious circumstances, although it was officially stated as an accident. There were many bruises found on his head, hinted at something horror, and many believed Ed might have been involved. After his brother's death, Ed became even more attached to Augusta. But in 1945, she suffered a stroke and died. Her death devastated Ed. He sealed off parts of the house as a shrine to her and left her room untouched while the rest of the home fell into decay. Now alone and disconnected from reality, Ed's mental state began to unravel. In the following years, Ed started visiting local graveyards, digging up recently buried bodies. He would take parts of the corpses home and use their skin and bones to create masks, clothing, and other weird items. His obsession with death and human grew significantly. This was fueled by his desire to recreate his mother in some twisted form. Ed's descent into violence began with murder. In 1954, Mary Hogan, a local tavern owner, went missing. Her disappearance remained unsolved for years. Then, on November 16, 1957, Bernice Warden, a hardware store owner, also vanished. Her son, Frank Warden, who was a deputy sheriff, noticed that Ed Gein had been the last customer in the store. He immediately suspected Ed and led the police to his farm. What they found there was beyond anything they could have imagined. Inside the rundown farmhouse, investigators discovered Bernice Warden's body, decapitated and hung like a deer in the shed. But that was just the beginning. The house was filled with human remains, including skulls used as bowls, lampshades made of human skin, and a belt crafted from human nipples. Ed had not only killed Bernice Warden and Mary Hogan, but had also been robbing graves to satisfy his gruesome desires. Ed was arrested that same day. During his confession, he admitted to killing Warden and Hogan, but he also revealed the extent of his grave-robbing activities. He described how he would dig up corpses and take parts to fashion his disturbing creations. His crimes earned him the nickname, the Butcher of Plainfield. Ed's trial was delayed as he was deemed mentally unfit to stand trial due to schizophrenia. He was sent to Central State Hospital in Waupun, Wisconsin. It wasn't until 1968 that he was declared fit for trial. Ed was found guilty of the murder of Bernice Warden, but because of his insanity, he was recommitted to a mental institution, where he spent the rest of his life. Ed Gein's crimes have left a lasting impact on popular culture. His story inspired some of the most infamous horror movie characters, including Norman Bates in Psycho, Leatherface in the Texas Chain Saw Massacre, and Buffalo Bill in The Silence of the Lambs. These characters, like Gein, are known for their twisted relationships with their mothers and their obsession with human remains. Ed Gein died on July 26, 1984, at the age of 77, from respiratory failure in the Mendota Mental Health Institute in Madison, Wisconsin. He was buried next to his mother in the Plainfield Cemetery, the very same cemetery from which he had stolen bodies. His grave became a macabre tourist attraction, and in 2000, his gravestone was stolen, though later recovered. Today, his grave remains unmarked. While Ed Gein's crimes may have inspired terrifying stories, the real tragedy lies with his victims and their families. Mary Hogan and Bernice Worden's lives were cut short in the most horrifying ways, and their families were left to deal with the trauma. The desecration of the bodies Ed stole from their graves also affected the families of the deceased, adding another layer of pain to his twisted acts. Perhaps, if there had been more attention to Ed's mental state before his crimes, things could have been different. His isolation, his obsession with his mother, and the lack of proper mental health care all contributed to the horrors that followed. His story is a reminder that sometimes the most dangerous monsters are the ones hiding in plain sight.